RMB is the investment banking arm of the first-ranked banking group, which is the second largest bank on the continent by market cap. Head office based in Johannesburg, but with offices in Ghana and Nigeria, and from a group point of view, representation in East Africa and the SADC area as well. From an infrastructure business point of view, I guess, more on the classic side, we are involved in all of the classic infrastructure sectors, so energy, roads, rail, ports, concessions, PPPs, industrial projects expansions, very much also very active in the export credit area. Andrew basically stole my list. I would absolutely endorse the list. I think it's a very good summary in terms of advice for developers and basically putting first things first. I would also just echo the sentiment that I think the developer market is extremely important to Africa and to infrastructure. I think it's the one area where there is where that's exactly where the need is. And I think those entities that are prepared to invest at risk and actually make these deals happen and unlock it is absolutely critical. It's hard for a commercial bank to actually play that role, and clearly hard for a third-party equity investor or a private equity investor to actually play that role. So it's a very important component of actually unlocking infrastructure across the continent. So I guess, maybe I can just add two comments or two thoughts to the list, wearing more of a lender hat. And the one is, I think we come across and engage with a lot of entities or individuals who have concessions or rights in various countries, and they aren't concessions as we know it. They really are the right to develop and do the feasibility on a project. So I think the one piece of advice to add to that is it's very important in that feasibility process and in developing the project to actually engage with government and to engage with the client. So in the classic infrastructure space, one is either providing a service on behalf of government or actually providing a service to government. And it's very important that that government is part of that conversation and part of that development, because ultimately, whether or not you have a valid arrangement or concession with government, or whether you are actually performing in accordance with what you should perform, it really depends very strongly on whether the government is clear on what it wants and it needs from that project. So, they are often absent from that whole process, and I don't think it's possible to have a properly formed concession type deal or arrangement or the infrastructure project involving government where the government is not clear on what it requires and what it terms as performance or non-performance. So I think it's important to close that loop and to have a process involving government. And then I think the lenders, one's heard this before quite often, but the lenders really do look to a go-to sponsor on these projects, whether that's from a technical point of view or from a commercial point of view. So a strong anchor third-party investor who has experience, has the governance track record and structure to actually run and manage these projects. And then from a technical point of view, people involved in the consortium who have actually done this before, so who have actually built a power plant of X megawatts before. They don't have to necessarily be in the shareholding, but I think they need to be part of the subcontract grouping. And that's very important. And talks to some of the earlier points that important for the developer to take it to a certain level, but I think it's important then to involve and to share the equity load and to share the experience load to get the balance in the consortium right. Because I think without that, it is very difficult then to go to the next step and attract the debt funding. And then and then lastly, just a sort of a theme on, I agree 100% with Andrew. I think the equity has to lead the debt in general. But as things, just a general comment, I think equity and debt is much more aligned in project finance or in infrastructure finance than one thinks. There's often this thing made around a conflict between equity and debt, but at the end of the day, the coverage on the debt is really the shareholder return. So everybody is aligned to make that project work and be successful over the life of the project. Yes, there will be some nuances and debates around the timing of that return, but at the end of the day, equity and debt are similarly aligned to make that project work. And really, it's important from our point of view that the developers and equity sees the lenders as partners, because these projects are also, they keep changing, they need constant attention, they need constant decisions, and really it's an ongoing partnership as opposed to a set of contracts.
Doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.